Alright guys, here we go. Section 5. We're going to look at the remainder and factor theorems. Basically, we're going to be a lot of dividing, okay? Dividing polynomials. So, our first question deals with long division. There's long division and synthetic division. So, you have to know both because you can't always do one or the other. So, here we go. Divide this long polynomial by this thing right here, x squared minus 3x plus 5. Now this looks pretty complicated, but it's not that bad. Let me take you to an easier question that you learned a long time ago. Okay, let's divide 28 by 3. What do? You take this number and put it outside this bracket, right? And then you take this number and put it inside the bracket. Now all you have to do is see, okay, how many times does 3 go into 2? It doesn't. Okay? So there'd be like a 0 here, but we don't put it. And then how many times does 3 go into 28? Alright? Let's actually do one more. 285. Alright? How many times does 3 go into 285? 3 goes into 2 0 times. 3 goes into 28. How many times? Well, 3 times 9 is 27, right? And then we take this and we subtract. This is the same process for this big long one, okay? So pay attention to this process. 3 times 9, we put it here, 27, and we subtract. We get 1 left over. Now what? Well, we bring the next number, we bring it down beside. So now we say, okay, how many times does 3 go into 15? Well, 3 times 5 is 15, and then we subtract again, and this is 0. What is this thing called right here? Whatever's left over is your remainder. This is where they get the remainder theorem from. Okay, so if we want to divide 285 by 3, the answer is this guy right here. It equals 95. Remainder 0. Okay, final answer. You're going to do the same ideas with this thing over here. Watch this. You put this thing outside the bracket. Okay? You put this inside the bracket. Now the only thing that people miss is placeholders. What I call placeholders. If something's missing, you got to put a 0. Watch. 3x to the 4th is the highest degree. You got to go highest degree, lowest degree. Minus 5x cubed. Notice there are no x squareds. So I'm going to put 0x squareds. And then there's 4 x's. And then minus 6. It's highest to lowest. Okay? Now, erase this. Now you just look and see. Here's the tricky part. How do I know how many times this goes into this? You only have to look at the first guy. You don't have to look. This doesn't matter. How many times does x squared go into 3x to the 4th, the first one? Okay? Or you just take this guy and you divide it by, so 3x to the 4th, and you divide it by this guy, x squared, and you get 3x 4th over x squared is x squared. So I put a 3x squared here. That's how many times this goes into this. How do you do that? What do you normally do? I do this times this, and I get 3x to the 4th, right? That's what normally. Let me go back, right? Go back to this. What do I do? How many times 3 go into 28? 9 times. Then what do? I take this times this, and I got this. Let's go backwards. I take this times this whole thing, not just this, but the whole thing. This times this gives me negative 9x to the 3rd, and this times this gives me plus 15x squared. Notice I needed this placeholder right here. Now what do I normally do? After I get this thing, I subtract, right? So I put a minus. But be careful. If I were you, I would put a parentheses around this because you might think just minus this one. It's minus everything. Okay? So be careful now. Now it gets into little details. 3x minus 3x to the 4th, gone. That's nothing. That was the whole point. Now look at this. Negative 5x cubed minus a negative 9x cubed. Negative 5 minus a negative 9. Negative 5 plus 9 is a positive 4x to the third. 0 minus 15 is minus 15x squared. Alright, that's my remainder so far. What do we normally do? You normally bring down. So if you don't remember long division way back when, you might be in trouble here. You bring down the next one, so plus 4x. Now here's what you do. Just like before, just like in the easier problems, you see how many times this one goes into this one right here. Don't worry about all this, okay? Just worry about the first and the first, the first and the first. How many times x squared go into 4x cubed? Well, if you don't know what that means, we'll just divide this divided by this, and that's how many times it goes into. So 4x cubed divided by x squared gives you 4x to the first, so 4x. So a positive 4x to the first. Okay? Now what do? Once you get a number up here, you take this number, times it by this whole thing. So 4x times x squared is 4x cubed. That's what I wanted. 4x times a minus 3x gives me minus 12x squared. And then 4x times a 5 gives me plus 20x. And then you subtract again. See, it's the same process over and over. You just got to do a few. I'm going to run out of room here. What's left? This is gone. Negative 15 minus negative 12 becomes negative 15 plus 12, which is negative 3x squared. 4 minus 20 is negative 16x. And then lastly, bring down. So then minus 6. Now I don't have a lot of room. I may got one more space here. So then lastly, I see how many times x squared go into negative 3x squared. Well, divide those two. Divide this divided by x squared, and you get a negative 3. That's where I put it up here. Okay? Then I'll take that negative 3 times this whole thing and get negative 3x squared. Negative 3 times negative 3x is a plus 9x. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. And then I draw a line, and then I subtract. Again, minus this whole thing. This minus this, nothing. Negative 16 minus 9 is negative 25. Negative 6 minus negative 15. Negative 6 plus 15 is plus 11. No, plus 9. Plus 9, and that's negative 25. This is x, right? Negative 25x plus 9. Now, you would see, okay, is x squared going to x? No, this has a lesser degree than this, so you're done. You can't do x squared in this. So this is the last part. What is the last part called? Your remainder. Now we're just about done. Your answer is always up here. Okay, 3x squared plus 4x minus 3. But here's how you write everything. Pay attention to this. 3x, your answer equal to 3x squared plus 4x minus 3. And then you got to put your remainder. You don't put remainder is this. No. You put this over your divisor right here. So negative 25x plus 9 over divided by always this. It's this over this always. So since it's a minus 20, so I'll just say, you just add on your remainder, plus a negative 25x plus 9 all over your divisor, which is x squared minus 3x. I know you can't see it's plus 5. You might not be able to see it too well. But you see the remainder right here? You take the remainder divided by your divisor. And that is your final answer. Whatever's up here plus your remainder. Okay? A lot of words to that one. Go over that if you need to go over that again. Okay, that's how you do long division. It's long.